103.5 FM, broadcasting live from New Haven, Connecticut, and streaming live at www.newhavenindependent.org.
Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline Hamden. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, Christina Crowder sure makes Hamden and New Haven tick. She's an active citizen volunteer and activist in Hamden on issues ranging from the environment to fiscal accountability, i.e. plastic straws to taxes. She's also a musician and accordionist, and she has a klezmer concert planned for this Saturday night in New Haven's Westville community. So Christina has generously come here to the WNHH studio to give us a musical preview and an update on town issues. And WNHH's own Brian Slattery is here with his violin to help her out. We want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. Thank you, Christina, for coming in. And thank you, Brian, for coming to your regular horn here, the station you built. And joining out. So before we talk, let's play. Why don't you folks play a tune for us, a preview for Saturday night's concert in Westville? All right. Christina Crowder playing along with Brian Slattery here on Dateline Hamden. Ravi Krishnaswamy says, hi, friends. Great playing, Christina and Brian. I'm listening. Lucy Gelman says, yes. I can't really pronounce that. Christina. Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. So Christina Crowder, that's a song. That's klezmer we were just listening to.
That is klezmer adjacent.
Okay, if you please come close to the mic.
I'm going to come
Is there
closer to the
such-
mic. I'm
now,
going to
isn't
pull that
klezmer
mic
by
in.
definition sort of like Yiddish adjacent?
No,
Is it ever not just
no,
adjacent?
it's not.
So there's
actually.
pure undistilled klezmer, and then there's klezmer adjacent.
Well, so Zev, my mentor Zev Feldman has 4 classifications. There's the core repertoire, and that is the klezmer music, the instrumental dance music of the Ashkenazic Jews that is entirely of Jewish content, which is to say it's it's an instrumental manifestation of Yiddish culture, Yiddishkeit Ashkenazic culture that it takes cantorial repertoire, paraliturgical song, and musical expression within Ashkenazic religious culture, and it puts it into an instrumental form. That's the core repertoire. There's several genres in that core repertoire, but there's also
Are you taking us through a history of klezmer?
it is a little bit of a history of klezmer, but it's it's very important to. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that there is a lot of there's a myth out there that klezmer music is only a weaker. It's only taking from outside cultures, and I think that's it. I've heard it that is sort of a. They grabbed a little bit of Polish music, they took some Romanian music, and it's just sort of a mushmash. Yeah. But actually, I think that the evidence shows that it is actually there's a very core Jewish content that is a distillation in this corporeal form of the sort of
And are
Jewish
we talking mostly
religious
fiddle-driven music from the late 1800s in Eastern Europe, from Jewish communities, songs they played at weddings, in addition to songs that came out of the liturgical canon? You're talking about that, sort of a combination.
Well, so the in the shul is the shul, in the synagogue is the synagogue, but at a wedding you have the klezmer. Mm-hmm. So the religious music for the most part stays in the shul, except for the ritual parts of the wedding where you do songs at the tish and so on.
Well, I'm thinking, though, when I have songs at tish now or at the dancing, they always have songs that include parts of Hallel, parts of holiday liturgy.
That's right.
But with a different beat.
That's right. But for dancing and for other parts of the wedding
we
ritual,
dance to that. It's usually
that is true. But for this is probably there's always been a crossover of this. But I think in the European context, if we're looking at a more traditional setting, there are parts of the wedding ritual itself that has very specific instrumental music, and then parts of the dancing at the wedding feast that would be probably a combination of those sung things and
in case you haven't guessed, you're listening to Christina Crowder, who knows an awful lot about klezmer, has studied it, and not just with her research skills, but with her accordion skills.
That's right.
Christina's on WNHH's Dateline New Haven right now with Brian Slattery, previewing some of the music she's going to be playing Saturday night with Brian in Westville at a concert that's going to be klezmer music. And I do want to, by the way, continue this conversation with klezmer is.
We'll talk about
and also, we're going to talk to Christina about her activism in Hamden, as she kind of is a Renaissance woman. Norman Planky says, hey, it sounds great. So the concert starts at 7 p.m. Saturday, March 2nd at Beth El Kesser, Israel, my synagogue. It's at 85 Harrison Street, right up the hill from Westville Village. And it's a concert with Bivolita. Is that your group?
Bivolitsa.
Bivolitsa. So there's a tzadi, but you just put it with the T there.
That's right.
Because wouldn't you put a Z there for the transcription?
It's a long story, which I will not get into right now. We'll get into it. There'll be explanation in the program notes for the concert, of course. But
Bolitsa is the group.
Bivolitsa is the name of the ensemble.
Bivolitsa.
Bivolitsa is the name of the group, and the reason it's called that is it's a diminutive name for cow in Romanian, and the cattle trade in the Ottoman Empire is one of the reasons that the music of the klezmorim of Moldova and Romania is so incredibly diverse and productive. Is that introduction of different cultures working together.
And if you can come close to the mic. And then you're going to have another guest there, Julie Asuma Levine.
That's right. She is a phenomenal clarinet player, and this is a great opportunity for us to work with her. She's at the Neighborhood Music School. She is in...
she performing separately or with your group?
She's going to be performing with us. She had her own klezmer ensemble called Generation Klez. She plays with the Bridgeport Symphony, Eastern Connecticut Symphony Orchestra, and she's a faculty member at Choate.
This sounds really fun. How many people are in Bivolitsa?
We're 4.
All right. So
we're kind of a club, so it's a rotating membership. But for this
club
gig,
is
we're
a
going to
good way
be
to
4.
describe it.
I actually have a theory that every third musical ensemble in New Haven of every genre of music, includes Brian Slattery.
That is not it's not a
like
not
Brian.
A far
when you
off.
go to bed, when you can't sleep, when you go to bed finally at 4 a.m. or whenever.
Yeah.
Do you try, instead of counting sheep, do you try to count all the groups you're in by name?
I do run their music in my head.
All right. So Viva Lisa is going to be playing at Becky. Is it cost any money to go?
Hi, it's $18.
Okay, $18.
Is the suggested donation? If you would like to come see the show, come see the show. I mean, I'm sure we can work something out.
So Christina Crowder, how and when did you pick up the accordion and why?
My grandmother, one year for Christmas, my grandmother sent me a check and she said, "Merry Christmas, go buy an accordion."
How old were you?
I was in sophomore in college.
Where were you?
And this is back I was going to school in Tacoma. I grew up in Oregon, and she was my grandmother's Finnish, and she grew up in a house that had no road to it until she was 6 years old because they got to it from the river, and she was part of a Finnish fishing community there, and they would get all gussied up on a Saturday night, and they'd go down to the Grange Hall and have a dance. And she loved the music, the fiddles and accordions and guitars, and she just wanted one of her grandkids to pick up the accordion. So,
and you didn't say, "Well, gee, I got this check. I'd really like to buy a concert ticket or a book or some marijuana."
She was not that kind of lady.
In other words, you had to buy that accordion. She was going to know.
She was not that kind of lady.
She was going to find you.
Yeah, she was going to find me. And so the accordion, I got the accordion and I took it to college with me, and it stared at me for a while, and I stared at it for a while, and finally I was like, well, okay, fine. I picked it up, and then I schlepped it to England for a year abroad. I discovered Irish music. I came back. I was already into anthropology, and so I started learning Balkan music and Bulgarian music. And I realized that the accordion was a passport to musical cultures all the way around the world.
And how did you settle? Is klezmer a major thing you play in, or just one of many? I've heard you play other kinds of music.
I play other kinds of music, but klezmer grabbed me. In the fall of '93, I had traveled to Budapest on kind of I was going to go to graduate school, but before I went to graduate school in anthropology, I thought I'd better go check out the place that I had been enchanted with. I'd been in Hungary briefly in 1990 after the revolution, but before the election. So everything was awesome and people were really happy. And I went back to Budapest
before the morning after.
Before the hangover set in,
hangover,
right? Yeah. And I went back in '93, and I
you want to go now? Have you gone recently? Oy vey.
I have gone recently. Oy vey is exactly right. But anyway, I got asked to join a band. This guy I knew, Bob Cohen from Teaneck, who had been living in Hungary, he says, hey, do you want to be in a band? And
Bob
I
Cohen
said,
from Teaneck asked you in Hungary, let's be in a band. Okay.
Totally, right?
In the heady days after Sylvia Nevarka.
That's right.
That sounds a great story.
And so I said, yes. What kind of music? And he said, Jewish music. I said, and he said, klezmer. And I said, what's that? And now 20 years later, almost 25 years later, I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm still entirely captured by that music.
What captured you about it? Why were you so taken with this music? Why have you continued with it 20 years later?
It just, it is so deep. There's such depth to this music. Not only in it, in this core repertoire, there's something very profound that grabs me. There's a textual nature of the tunes that I really appreciate. It's very conversational, it's rhetorical, and it's very engaging. And then another side of it is by examining Jewish music and Ashkenazic music across Europe, it's a way into looking at, well, what is Polish music? What is Romanian music? What is Moldavian music? What is Hungarian music? And sort of examining those musics through the lens of how they're similar or different.
Would you say that any music, I don't know if Brian wants to weigh in this, any music over time evolves with its cross-pollination with other musicians, other traditions?
Well, that's actually funny you should ask, because that's exactly what the program that we're doing at Becky is going to examine.
You're going to walk us through that.
We're going to walk us through
klezmer. That. Ooh.
This cattle trade, these roots of trade that were instigated by the Ottomans and the Ottoman occupation brought into connection with each other two great professional classes of musicians: the professional klezmorim and the professional gypsy musicians of the Lautar. And so you have these two great musical cultures that are in interaction with each other in Moldova, Bessarabia, eastern part of Romania. And they go down in the wintertime, they go down to Istanbul to hang out, play on the streets, play in cafes. And so they cross-pollinate their music with each other, with the Ottomans.
What time period are we talking? When is it?
This is like 18th century, 19th century. We have.
I didn't realize it goes back that far, klezmer. It goes back
Yeah, and klezmer. Well, klezmer is 15th century Prague.
Wow.
Middle of the 14th century.
Was it originally fiddle? I mean,
the violins, cymbal, which is the Jewish hammer dulcimer, flutes, lots of flutes, cello.
Because when we had the revival in New York, the Don Byron period, and even before that in New York, wasn't that when we brought in the clarinet?
Clarinet is the quintessential American klezmer instrument. Yeah. Right.
And I'm guessing I just jumped you ahead about a few hundred years.
That's okay. That's totally okay. I mean,
4B.
The clarinet and the band.
I always think like fiddle, Eastern Europe, traveling around New York, clarinet.
That is
Don Byron.
It's a great Don Byron, right? And all roads do lead to Don Byron in a sense. But yeah, that's a very useful categorization because in fact that's kind of how it goes. The fiddles even as the band instruments come into use in Europe. Because of the Russian army and various armies that people are getting drafted into, they bring home their clarinets, their trombones, their valve trombones. The fiddle is always the leader. In New York, that changed.
When was New York? When did that happen?
We have records of it. The great, what we come to know is the Great American Klezmorim start coming in the teens and the 20s after the First World War.
That'd be the pinnacle of the Jewish migration to New York and America in the 1880s through 19-teens.
Right. The Fiskars, the earlier wave of immigrants did not have so many musicians, or certainly not so many good musicians, right? But musicians from klezmer families start to come after the First World War and up until 24.
And then there was the cross-pollination with jazz.
There is a certain amount of cross-pollination with jazz, although it is less than you might think.
And why
That's
is that?
Another... this is self-reported from within the klezmer community, even those players from the 20s and 30s and the 40s. That it's just less than.
When did we have the klezmer revival in New York? Was that the 80s?
Well, the revitalization, mid 70s, 78 is the sort of seminal concert with Dave Terrace.
When all kinds of traditional musics were having revivals.
That's right.
And is that when jazz started really intersecting?
Actually, maybe that could very well be the case. Actually.
All right. So we've talked a lot about klezmer. Let's hear a little more.
Let's hear some more.
For Christina Crowder with Brian Slattery in one of his 87,000 bands, Bibolica. So playing this Saturday night at Becky.
Let's play a piece let's play a little bit of Hanash. Here's another klezmer adjacent piece.
And by the way, Hans von Backel says listening in France brings back beautiful memories.
Hi, Hans.
Big hug, Christina. Thanks for listening, Hans, in France.
Let me start again. I totally had a crazy meltdown. That's why. I get to blame you. I like that.
All right. That is Christina Crater and Brian Slattery, who among their many aliases will be showing up in Westville Saturday night as Bibalitza, playing a klezmer concert, a taste of which you just got, at Congregation Bethel, Kesser, Israel, 85 Harrison Street, starting at 7 p.m. So nice to hear you playing music in the studio. Jason Menke says, fascinating conversation, even better performances. Thank you for listening, Jason. And Jennifer Brocius, who says, listening here in Hamden. Christina and Brian are both awesome musicians, as well as active in so many positive ways in our community. That's the other lure I was using to get you here, Christina, in the studio at Dateline Hamden, which is that in addition to being a musician, you're a very active citizen in Hamden. You are involved in, first of all, you serve for free on boards and commissions such as the Energy Use and Climate Change Commission. You are involved. Are you involved with Hamden PAN, Progressive Action?
I'm involved with Hamden PAN, the different PANs. I mean, Whitneyville PAN is sort of the group that is kind of, we all formed at the same kind of time.
After the 2016 presidential election?
Absolutely, exactly.
And is that before that, were you very active in Hamden?
I was active in a lot of ways, but not in politics. Mm-hmm. And certainly not in local politics. I mean, I was involved around.
And how long had you been living in Hamden?
2011, I moved here.
Okay. So why did you decide it's time to get involved in local politics just because the United States lost its mind?
Well, I mean, we were instructed to do so by the Indivisible Guide. At a certain point, everybody's sort of like tearing their hair out and figuring, well, what happened in the wake of the election? And here comes this Indivisible Guide that comes out and says, well, one of the ways that you really can make an effect is to work on the local level. And so if you can't, your national level activism is helpful, but it doesn't have the same kind of impact as your local level does. And if we're going to rebuild the Democratic Party, for example, we got to do it from the ground up.
And boy, has there been change in that Democratic Party in Hamden, which now is setting the agenda for the town.
That's right. So I'm on the DTC as well. I got elected to the
Committee.
Democratic Town Committee in the 5th District as well.
And you're you're spurred by your concern about a national election, so you're spending part of your time trying to make sure there isn't too much light pollution from street lights and that you're not getting plastic straws and plastic bags given out in retail establishments.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
So, well, I have some breaking news actually to report, which is that the mayor of Hamden, Kurt Lang, has officially requested or sent a letter of interest to United Illuminating of Hamden's intention to purchase its streetlight inventory from United Illuminating.
Oh, wow.
So this would be a first step in for Hamden to be able to actually sort of control its streetlight.
So would you have to pay tax money to get those streetlights?
Well, there's so much the efficiencies that can be made for a municipality in owning its own streetlight infrastructure are so vast that it's possible to potentially finance the cost of the purchase of the inventory, most of which is very old and well beyond its amortized value. You could finance the purchase and own and maintain those lights for within the same, with even less budget than what we're paying right now to lease those lights. So
we lease. So a town leases the lights from UI.
Right, and
so like owning a house at a good deal rather than paying rent to someone who's like milking it not investing in it.
That's right.
And would you like to see them replaced by LED lights that don't pollute as much? Or?
That's right. But that's exactly right. And the thing is that all LED lights are not created equal. If you've been to the Home Depot, even for shopping for lights in your own home, you can see that there's all kinds of different color temperatures, there's different wattages, there's different brands of fixtures. And what we get with a United Illuminating installation is kind of a one-size-fits-all solution. And it's the size that fits United Illuminating's needs.
Which is what?
Warranty. How long is the warranty?
And why would that not be the town's needs if it's UI's needs?
Because they're like any other kind of thing, if like a different kind of model of car or different kinds of things that you can buy, what the town might be looking for are streetlights that have a very nice, even distribution pattern, that have a very full cutoff at the edges of the roadway, so that you're not lighting private property. that have good glare control so that drivers aren't blinded by the lights as they're driving down the road.
So you're saying a government would have more concern about these other issues because they're not just doing a bottom line calculation for what is returned to shareholders, which is why Wallingford has cheaper electricity than everybody because they own their power company.
Okay, that's right. And the big and the difference is so Mike, our state rep Mike D'Agostino has introduced a piece of legislation to the CGA this year.
Connecticut General Assembly
to mandate that all towns, that United Illuminating towns, as well as Eversource towns, should have the right to purchase their streetlight inventory.
We don't have that right.
We don't have that right now. Well,
so we need state and naming legislation.
It's undefined. New Haven owns its streetlights.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was this before laws?
They were purchased. There was you'd have to. I know that there's a story behind it. There was a deal that was made some years ago. It was actually. Maybe a decade ago, something like that, where it was like a one-time swap, and United Illuminated decided they needed some capital, so they sold their streetlights to New Haven, which then in 2014, Giovanni Zinn oversaw the transition to LED streetlights in the city of New Haven.
Remember that. So in other words, you're saying that if UI wants to sell it, they can, but every other town would need special permission?
Well, if you live in an Eversource town, and your mayor or first selectman can go to Eversource and say, we would like to purchase our streetlight inventory, and we will take over. We need to agree a price, and off you go. And they can do that, and it's allowed by law. Any town has the right to do that by law. United Illuminating towns, we have inquired, the town of Hamden has inquired, can we buy our streetlights? And the United Illuminating has said, well, we do not wish to sell them. Oh. And so there is no legal mandate that says that we have the right to purchase.
But it's enough wrestling with them just to be able to turn on solar panels and get, not have them soak you for the electricity you're going to create. Yeah,
that's right. So, and the thing about
we're in the middle of that. That's a personal dig.
And it's important that they want to get that last month. They want to get 2 months, 3 months out of it before they switch it over.
They also don't want to pay you the real price of what you're producing. They want to buy it wholesale and pay you retail. Buy it retail, buy it wholesale, pay you retail. Yeah.
That's right. So they want to sell it to other people for retail price, and they want to buy it from you for wholesale price. Right. But the other thing that's really critical for towns like Hamden, which is the only United Illuminating town that has not undergone an LED transition yet, we're the only town. Mayor Lang put our transition project on hold in March 2017. This was as a result of citizen activism in the town of Hamden that was spearheaded by myself.
But why did you want to put it on hold?
Because at the time, United Illuminating was only offering 4,000 Kelvin color temperature bulbs, and that summer, the American Medical Association had come out with a report that said that they recommended no higher than a 3,000 Kelvin CCT, color correlated temperature, and that's for health safety. Yeah. That's for health reasons for humans. It's for public safety.
What year was this you put on hold?
2016. The 2016 summer, AMA comes out with a report saying that for medical reasons, for human safety and for drivers, they recommended less than 3,000. And so a bunch of us in Hamden, we got together and we started hearing that this LED transition was coming. We found out that UI was only offering 4,000 K, which was above the threshold recommended by UI. And so we started a campaign to ask UI first, well, can you give us a 3,000 Kelvin option? And so they said no, and it went back and forth. But in the end, our mayor, Kurt Lang, put the transition project on hold until such time as they could source us a 3,000 K bulb, which they eventually agreed to do. Now, in the meantime, we realized that there were a lot of financial efficiencies to be gained by Hamden owning its own streetlights.
How'd you find out about that?
Well, we started looking around. We started doing. I talked to a lot of.
And who are we?
This is myself and Bob Pattison, Leo Smith of the Dark Sky International Dark Sky Association, and we had a group of sort of citizens who started collecting research papers from online.
And was this before
articles.
The presidential election?
No, this is after. This is 2017.
Oh, 2017. I thought you said 16.
the summer of 16 was when the AMA report came out.
Oh, I see. But this is after you got involved.
Then after we got involved.
So it's so interesting. One of the first things, Trump election led you to streetlights.
It is a little strange.
No, I don't think so.
But there we were.
I don't think it's strange at all.
Yeah, it's the issue at hand.
It was the issue at hand.
Yeah.
And one reason people aren't happy about the Trump election is about climate change.
That's right. Well, and what we're realizing is, so it all links together now. We see that the IPCC report comes out.
What's IP?
International Panel on Climate Change, and they come out with a report, a very, very scary report saying that we have 10 years to really get at this problem. And we were reading news reports that are coming out, almost every day about the loss of biodiversity and species loss. Mm-hmm. And one of the major contributors, along with changing climate conditions, is light pollution. Light pollution is a huge factor.
I didn't know that.
If you have lights, we're overlighting. I mean, the transition. The problem with the great thing about LEDs is that the light that you get per watt is a lot cheaper. It uses a lot less electricity, so the maintenance cost is a lot less. The problem is that most people don't replace lumen for lumen when they replace the light. They bump it up, right? When you had a floodlight at your property that was going to cost you $100 a month to run as an incandescent, you might not want to you wouldn't add a brighter light, but if you can run that light at $35 a month and get more lumens, that's what people do. They get more light, right? Because it's cheaper. So rather than replacing the lumen level that was adequate from before. And so this is happening on these individual decisions by individual homeowners, by towns, by municipalities, by cities all around the world. And so our light profile, as a result of the energy savings from LEDs, is that our light profile is jumping up by sort of
unintended
consequences. And what that means for species, if you have insects and pollinators that depend on darkness to be able to do their life cycle things, breeding, and all of these things that depend on those that they depend on a cycle of light and dark to be able to exist. And if we are providing artificial light that has blue spectrum, this is where the 4,000 Kelvin thing comes in. When you have artificial light that has blue spectrum light in it, that's what it signals to that insect. It signals to us as humans is daytime. So you mess the circadian.
It's so funny. UI gets pressed in poor New Haven neighborhoods to put floodlights all night on streets like Kensington because of crime and shootings.
That's right. And there is, we have to be smart about using evidence-based reasoning to figure out how to light in a smart way. Mm-hmm. I mean, the evidence is mixed, whether or not light at night prevents crime or whether it doesn't have an effect.
I think our souls need the darkness too.
Our souls need the darkness too, and if we're going to light a low-income neighborhood 24 hours a day as if it was daylight, are we providing blackout curtains to every family that has adults and children who are sleeping in rooms that are lit by those lights?
All right, and we're shedding light on klezmer music and on the environment on Dateline Hamden at WNHH, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhaven.org. We're talking to Christina Crowder, who's here with with Brian Slattery in anticipation of their klezmer concert this Saturday night at Becky Bethel Kezer Israel in Westville, starting at 7 p.m. And we're also talking about her activism. And I want to get back to music in a minute, but I just want to ask you a little more. In general, I see a theme. I know you're not working just on the environment, but that seems to be a special interest of yours. That's right.
So there's one more thing I want to say about the streetlights, just very quickly, is that the last reason why municipalities want to own streetlights is that you can do all kinds of great things with an LED streetlight that you can't do with an incandescent bulb. You can deliver municipal Wi-Fi through a streetlight. You can do parking meters through streetlights. There is a future in which you might be able to do dimming controls so that you could dim your lights after midnight. But all of those things, none of those things are possible when the electrical power company owns the lights. But it is possible, and it's feasible, and it's happening today for municipalities that own their own streetlight infrastructure. And there's only more things coming down the pike. I mean, you might be able to charge your electric car through something that's posted up on a streetlight. So there's all kinds of amazing technologies that are coming down the pike, that we can take advantage of.
And Val McKee says, I love the discussion about light. And Claude Kahn says, what
What?
Thanks very much for coming in. Another thing that's going to change in Hamden, thanks in part to your group's activism, is that starting in the fall,
That's right.
when you go shopping, the stores, grocery store, convenience store, they're not going to be able to give you a single-use plastic bag.
That's right.
And if you're in a restaurant, unless you ask for a straw, you're not getting one.
That's right.
Why did you get involved in that?
Well, first and foremost, as a thanks, on the behest of Brad McDowell, who was the council member from the 9th District, and he had taken on this issue. He'd been talking about it for several months. He came to the Energy Use and Climate Change Commission meetings and was talking to us about various bills that had come forward. He took leadership on that bill and really saw it through the legislative process. And so it was easy to do my own research and to join all of the other citizens who came out for some of the meetings on that topic. I mean, the simple factor is that we're drowning in plastics. We don't know what the long-term effect of microplastics are in the human body, and we don't know what the long-term effect of those microplastics are in our environment. We already know that they're clogging up the oceans and they're clogging up waterways, and even though single-use plastic bags constitute a small portion of the overall waste load in a community, they're not easily recyclable, they're not particularly desirable, and they end up cluttering all over the place. So and the most important thing, and this is something that Brad mentioned, is that by taking this step, we're changing a habit. And that's often the hardest thing to do, is to change our own habits.
Good. I almost all the times remember to bring my canvas bags when I go food shopping. I kind of feel like that's just like the food being healthful.
That's right.
Feel good doing it.
That's right. And if we can.
Yeah, same.
Do you do that, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of my New Year's resolutions. Is I'm gonna bring a bag to the grocery store.
And if I forget, I'll take the plastic. But
I punish myself if I forget.
You load up your pockets
because I'm a lapsed Catholic, so I only respond to.
So you need to feel guilty about something. Yeah, we understand that in our faith as well.
That's how it works.
Which will bring us back to klezmer in a minute. But go on.
Yeah, no, I mean that's it. It's just changing that one habit, taking that one step of sort of personal responsibility. And I think that the concerns that were raised about, dog owners, elderly folks in the community, and low-income folks, I think that is an opportunity for us to figure out how we can replace that one need with different solutions. And I know that we can.
Another opportunity. You have good timing here getting involved in these issues, because once every 10 years, towns put together long-term plans.
That's right.
COPD, which is
the POCD, Plan of Conservation and Development.
So you're doing this big process where all of Hamden was getting together and saying, here's how we want our town to look like over the next 10 years, where things grow, how we save the environment. And is trees a big part of that?
Trees is a part of it.
Tell me about that.
I think as a sort of a philosophical background, one of the things that the EUCC Commission has tried to highlight with the POCD process, and this is coming through the Planning and Zoning Department in Hamden, is that we really need to be thinking about conservation, development, and sustainability. And that we have to, even though it's not in the state mandate when it comes to the POCD process, we have to be thinking about sustainability, because that is the only way that we're going to be resilient, have a chance of finding the resiliency that we need to be able to address the climate change effects that we're already feeling in the town of Hamden. I mean, how many tornadoes do you need to know that?
Do you have a theory about why it is every time there's some kind of
the answer is one.
There's some freak, some freak storm.
That's right.
Some freak storm comes through the area for like 7 seconds, but with all this destruction. And Hamden always gets it 10 times worse. I'm thinking all the way back to '89.
There was that blizzard a few years ago.
In
yeah,
89,
we won
89
snow. Yeah.
There was a tornado for 7 seconds, but it was a tornado only in Hamden. And all your trees got hit. Entire neighborhood was destroyed.
Right.
In Hamden, I mean, New Haven, we had a branch fall down, but and then you had the Snowmageddon in 2013, the biggest snowfall in all of Connecticut. It was 3 feet in Hamden.
We won snow.
Yeah, and then just like the last few months, we've had 2 storms where one night people couldn't get home. People were spending hours, sometimes into the morning, to drive a few miles to their house. Right. So many trees came down. What's going on?
Right. So
is it a hex, or is it something you could deal with as an environment?
Yeah. I walked into this. I think Brian, you moved to this town
fields
too. You know what it is? It's the secret. It's the bunker.
It's the bunker.
It's the bunker.
What's the bunker?
You tell that story.
What's the bunker?
So after one of the hurricanes, I was walking around the neighborhood, and I was telling my neighbor, I'm amazed that how did we not lose power during this thing? And my neighbor said very matter-of-factly, well, it's because of the secret bunker. And I said, what? and they said there's a this is what I mean. This can't be true. But what they said is it's because of the secret bunker that delivers power to the neighborhood, like even during a storm and that kind of thing. Obviously, there's no way it's true
because it has to go through lines, and if lines are down and the tree falls.
Yes.
Although it could be metaphysical or fourth dimension.
But I feel like this is a great.
You write science fiction, so you might be.
I feel like the great folk legend of this is that the secret bunker thing, that obviously that part of it isn't true, but that there are bunkers at the powder farm, feels like an extension of that. Like they're the real bunkers that you know.
What neighborhood are you in, Brian?
Spring Glen.
And what neighborhood are you in?
I'm in Whitneyville.
Yeah. Whitneyville. Okay.
Yeah.
So Christina, now aside from bunkers and flukes of nature, and I always thought it had something to do with also positioning from the shore. Trees are an issue.
Trees are an issue.
How does this contribute to it, and what would you like to see done?
Well, you know, Spring Glen was built in the 20s, the 30s. Whitneyville was built maybe a little bit before that. We have a lot of really beautiful, dense neighborhoods that were developed around that time. And after the land was cleared, trees were planted. And those trees now, many of those that are surviving are over 100 years old. And they're reaching, many of them, the end of their natural life cycle anyway. And then they're under, then there's all kinds of things that happen to urban street trees, as we know, and this isn't just a Hamden problem. It's a New Haven problem. It's happening in cities and towns around the country where that street tree canopy has been compromised by year on year. The power company comes through, a limb falls down, somebody hacks a limb out here and there. And so we're at a state where our existing canopy is very much compromised because trees have been lost, but they haven't been replanted. So Hamden Alliance for Trees, which is led by Diane Hoffman, has been on the forefront of trying to get the town of Hamden to really take the initiative to increase the planting of new street trees, climate resilient new street trees. And there are lists that are being developed of trees that we expect that not only will make it today, like the old traditional species, some of them will make it today, but we want them to be able to thrive 50 years from now with different temperatures, different climate patterns.
What about burying power lines?
Oh,
hugely expensive.
Hugely expensive. I mean, if we could do that on the trunk lines, what would that save us? It's a high upfront cost. It'd save us millions.
Destroy them.
Save us millions. If we could underground,
that's the big kahuna, right?
That's it.
To put them underground.
I mean, and if we're gonna revitalize the Magic Mile in Hamden, how phenomenal would it be if we could underground the power lines in that area? Much of that power is underlined, but can you imagine how much more beautiful that space could be with thoughtful redevelopment, undergrounded power lines all along Dixwell Avenue coming up from New Haven? Wouldn't that be phenomenal?
I vote yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of magic and beauty, there's also magic and beauty in that accordion you play and the klezmer music, because we're talking about both the environment in Hamden and klezmer music, both of which our guest today, Christina Crowder, knows an awful lot about and makes a difference on. But you want to say something before we make that transition?
Yeah, well, I want to feature what the concert is going to talk about, the interplay of different cultures that leads to
the concert
great
is this Saturday
music.
Night at Congregation Bethel Israel, 85 Harrison Street in Westville, New Haven, where you're playing klezmer concert.
That's right. But we also want to highlight in this concert some material from a new collection of klezmer folio that is the first publication of the Klezmer Institute, which is an organization, a nonprofit organization that I founded with a number of my colleagues.
Okay.
I'm a co-founder of that institute, and the mission of the institute is to advance the study, preservation, and performance of Ashkenazic Jewish expressive culture through research, teaching, publishing, and programming. We are hoping, 40 years into the klezmer revival, we have faculty members and researchers who are doing work on klezmer music and Ashkenazic musical and dance topics, but we don't have. There isn't a department. If you want to go to graduate school or even take an undergraduate course, you can take a graduate course in klezmer music, but you can't really study. There is no place where you can really do in-depth study of this topic.
YIVO doesn't do that?
Well, YIVO does, of course, but they don't have an academic. They don't have. You can't go get a master's degree at YIVO, right? So, and we're not necessarily promoting for that, but we would like to become a champion for the study of Ashkenazic expressive culture as a field of study in a way that would build upon the research that has been, and the researchers who have been working in the field in the past, but to give it a little bit more of a structure, give it a little bit of a more formal impetus to find grant money. Part of that is to do publications that build on the collections. There was a huge number of folios and collections that came out in the 80s and 90s. There's been kind of a dearth of new publications in the last couple of 10, 15 years. And so we want to provide more tune resources, new collections, things that are teaching resources that could be used in a shul. They could be used for an ensemble, a community band, things like that. And the first one is the Levitt Legacy Klezmer Folio, and this is a collection of tunes that are from a 4-generation klezmer family in New York, the Levitt family. And so we work with Dave, who is a contemporary of mine. We're about the same age, and we went through his grandfather's manuscripts and his father's material and listened to recordings, and we came up with this collection of 20 tunes and 2 songs.
Wow.
So we're going to play we're going to play some of those tunes at the concert, and we're going to play one of those tunes right now.
All right, so this is Christina Crowder with Brian Slattery. They are half of Bibolitsa, which is playing Saturday night, and we're going to tell you a little more about that after they play, and thank you for tuning in to Dateline Hamden. Take it away.
So this is a tune called Group.
All right. Christina Crowder with our own Brian Slattery. Love to claim him as our own. If someone plays good fiddle, you can say he's our own Brian Slattery. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, what a great,
cool.
What a great, that time went by fast. Christina Crowder, thanks for coming in, and Brian.
Absolutely.
Christina Crowder is an activist in Hamden, as you heard. She's helping preserve the environment. And as a musician, accordion player for decades now, she's preserving and helping to evolve klezmer music. And you're going to learn a lot about it more and enjoy listening to it more and dancing this Saturday night, March 2nd, at Congregation Beth El Kezer Israel, Becky, for short, 85 Harrison Street above Westville Village, starting 7 p.m. Recommended donation $18. Hi, thanks for joining us.
And I would say thank you very much. Thanks, Paul, for having us. I want to say that actually Brian Slattery and Adam Matlock are going to head up that concert with a few tunes as a duo, and then we're going to launch into the
because he's our accordion. Adam's an accordion player too.
Adam is an accordion player too.
So accordion summit.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
I wonder if you could have like battle rap if you had accordion battle rap.
There are thoughts.
My favorite idea.
For another show. I want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for support for this program, and thanks to everyone who listened in from as far away as France. I wonder what time it is there. And for offering your comments. Maybe he's enjoying some darkness there, not with light pollution, and enjoying the music to tie it together. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven and Hamden's home for community radio.